Hello students. On this video, I'm going to show you how to fill up a recipe grocery list. This is the grocery list that you need to take to any of your providers to purchase all of the ingredients that you need for your recipes. Okay, so problem 4.4 or the problem 1 of 4.4, it has 4 parts. It has 4 recipes, which is recipe A, recipe B, recipe C, and recipe D. Okay, the way that this works is that recipe A and recipe C are the main recipes, and recipe B and recipe D are sub-recipes. So those are recipes for one of the ingredients on the original recipe or on the previous recipe. So for example, the one that I'm showing you right now, the recipe B for orange dressing, this will be the recipe to make the orange dressing needed on the first recipe. Okay, sometimes you have to make several recipes or several, let's say, dressings or fonts or uh, any other preparation that you're going to include into a main dish. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working on this. So the first thing that we read is that we will be catering for 48 people or 48 guests, and our recipes may or may not serve 48 guests. So for example, the lobster salad recipe, it serves 8 people. So first thing that you have to do is you have to scale the recipes or standardize the recipes to the desired number of servings. So this is what we're gonna do in this first page. Okay, so for recipe A, I'll go ahead and write down recipe A. What we are doing for the scaling factor, because we need to find the scaling factor, that is the desired yield over the actual yield. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So my desired number of servings is 48, and divided by the actual yield, the actual number of servings for the recipe, which is 8, is these two numbers over here. Okay, and my scaling factor result is 6. That means that I'm going to multiply every single ingredient that I have times 6, and that is how I'm going to fill up the scaled recipe. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first one. The first one says 1 pound and 8 ounces of lobster meat. So if you do the conversion of the 8 ounces to pounds, you know this number is 1.5 pounds. Okay, so I'm going to do my calculator 1.5 times 6, so everything times 6, and I'm going to get a total of 9 pounds of lobster meat as the first thing that I'm doing. Okay, for the second ingredient, I'm going to take 12 ounces and multiply times 6. I'm going to get the total number of ounces that I need, which is 72. Okay, simple multiplication. I'm scaling my recipe right now. So third ingredient, that's 3 mangoes. So 3 times 6, that's 18 mangoes that I need now. And then 4 times 6, that's 24 avocados that I need. 5 ounces times 6, that is 30 ounces of tomatoes. 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon times 6, that's 6 teaspoons. And then 10 fluid ounces of orange dressing times 6, that's 60 fluid ounces of orange dressing. And I'm done with my scaling of the recipe. I have not done any conversions. I'm just multiplying everything times the scaling factor so that it appropriately serves the number of people that I'm required, which is 48. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing for recipe B right now. So I have to find a different scaling factor because this recipe serves or makes 18 fluid ounces. Okay, so out of the total number of fluid ounces that I need, I don't know that number. Well, at this point, I already know that, which is 60 fluid ounces because I calculated from the previous recipe. But for this one and for the crepes, you don't have this number. This you have to calculate from the previous recipe. Okay, so the dessert crepes, that's recipe D. Uh, that's a number that's going to come from the crepe Suzette. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the scaling factor. This is for recipe B. I'll go ahead and erase all of this. We are doing the scaling factor for recipe B. Okay, the same scaling factor is my desired over my actual yield. Okay, so my scaling factor equals my desired making is 60 fluid ounces because that's what I need to serve my whole recipe. Okay, So 60, and I'm dividing by the yield of the orange dressing recipe, which is 18 fluid ounces. Okay, so 60 divided by 80, that's going to give me the scaling factor for my orange dressing to serve exactly 60 fluid ounces that I need. And my scaling factor happens to be 3.333 repeating. Okay, so when you're doing calculations with this number, make sure that you include as many threes as possible because that's the result of 60 over 18. So I'm going to take all of my ingredients on the orange dressing and I'm multiplying times 3.3 repeating. Okay, each of those ingredients. So starting with the 12 ounces, or excuse me, 12 fluid ounces of olive oil times 3.3 repeating equals 40 fluid ounces. This number is 60, okay, which is from the previous recipe. Okay, next number that I'm multiplying is 6 times 3.3 repeating. Okay, so 6 times 3.3 repeating, that is 20. Okay, 1 times 3.3 repeating, 1 teaspoon, that will be 3.3 repeating teaspoons, or 3 1/3. Okay, and then half teaspoon of cracked black pepper, so 0.5. I'm multiplying times 3.3 repeating to get 1.66 repeating teaspoons. And then the last number, that's 2 teaspoons of salt times 3.3 repeating, which is my scaling factor. This is 6.6 repeating teaspoons. This is the number of teaspoons of salt that I'm going to need for my recipe for orange dressing so that I have enough for my recipe A, which is the lobster salad. Okay, this will be calculating the scaling factors. Let's go into doing the proper conversions for my recipe. Okay, so that's going to be the next page in the problem. So I have one for lobster salad and I have one for orange dressing and also for recipe C and D. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to take the scale recipe quantities and I'm going to plug them into this column over here. Okay, so this is 9 ounce, 72 ounces, 18 ish, 24 ish, 30 ounces, and then 6 teaspoons. Okay, and the 60 fluid ounces that I'm not doing on this part because that is for the orange dressing. That's the second recipe. Okay, so well, let's go ahead and dump those values into my scale recipe as well. Okay, so starting with olive oil, which says 40 fluid ounces. Okay, then orange juice fresh, that's 20 fluid ounces. And then vanilla extract, that's 3.3 repeating teaspoons. Make sure that you're including all the units. 1.6 repeating teaspoons. And then 6.6 repeating teaspoons of salt. Okay. And now at this point, you don't have to do anything else for the first part of the problems, the scaling factor part. This is all we're going to be working with right now. Okay, let's go ahead and do some conversions, starting with the lobster meat. The problem says that the scale recipe quantity is 9 pounds and we are converting to pounds. So it looks like we don't need to do any conversions here, okay, because the revised scale recipe quantity is in the same units, so there's no conversions to be done. The revised scale recipe quantity, remember the second column that we're going to start to fill up, this is the scale recipe quantity, but it's converted to the units that you're going to do the purchasing in. Okay, so if you look at all of these AP quantities, or the quantities that you're going to purchase, you're going to see that those are the same units as the revised scale recipe quantity. So we have to convert all of my recipe quantities into those units, those revised units, or the units that we're going to purchase that. Okay, so that's 9 pounds. And you have to decide if you're going to put it through the yield or not. And since this is a measurement, you have to put it through the yield. Yield is 100%. So the AP quantity is going to be the same, 9 pounds. Okay. Moving to the next one, that's 72 ounces, and we are converting to pounds, so we have to do the proper conversion. 72 ounces, ounces on the bottom, pounds on the top, 16 ounces per 1 pound, and then you're gonna do your calculations. So 72 divided by 16, this is a total of 4.5. 4.5 pounds. Okay. And then at this point, you have to look up the number on the book of yields for red beets, okay, and convert that into an AP quantity. Okay. Next step is going to be the mangoes, and that's 18 each, and we're converting to each. Okay, so it looks like I don't have to do any conversions at this point. The scale recipe quantity and the revised scale recipe quantity, or how I'm going to purchase the mangoes, is the same number. Okay, and then this is written by the count, so we're not going to require to use the yield. In this case, that's 18-ish. Okay, and for avocados, that's the same thing. It's 24-ish. We're not using the yield because the recipe is written by the count. So we need to purchase 24 avocados. Okay, for tomatoes, we're converting 30 ounces to pounds. Okay, so 30 ounces. Converting again to pounds. Okay, so 30 divided by 16. Total pounds is 1.875 pounds. 1.875 pounds. Okay, and then I have to use some yield conversion here. The percent yield, you have to look this up in the book of yield, the same as for red beets. Why is that? Because this is written by the measurement in the recipe. Okay, so you put it through the yield formula, and then you go ahead and write the AP quantity there. Okay, I'll let you guys do that. For salt, regular, let's go ahead and do another conversion in there. Okay, we're converting 6 teaspoons to ounces. Okay, and you're gonna require to look up the number on the book of yields. Okay, 6 teaspoons to ounces. So look up this number for the conversions, and then write your total amount of ounces there. Okay, since even if it's written by the measurement here, the yield is 100% because salt, you're not going to extract the salt from the sea or seawater or refine the salt. You're just gonna purchase a container that has a given amount of ounces. So that's why my yield is written as 100%. So whatever number you write there on the revised scale recipe quantity exactly goes into your AP quantity. Okay, so at this point, you fill up all of your AP quantities. Then you're gonna move up to the orange dressing. You have to do all of the conversions as well. Let me go ahead and clear this up. Clear up a little bit of the space. And let's do some of the conversions that I required to for the orange dressing. Okay, let's go ahead and focus on vanilla extract. Okay, this I'm gonna fill up. So vanilla extract, we are converting from 3.33 repeating teaspoons to bottles. Okay, start with 3.33 repeating teaspoons. Teaspoons on the bottom. Okay, we have a conversion here that says bottles to pints, or 1 pint is 1 bottle. So I have to go from teaspoons all the way to pints. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go from teaspoons to tablespoons, which is a 3 to 1. Those conversions I know from the top of my head, so I can use those. Okay, and then I'll go from tablespoons to cups, which is 16 tablespoons to 1 cup. Okay, and then I'll go from 2 cups is 1 pint. Then last but not least, pints to bottles, which is a 1-to-1 conversion. Okay, if you know the conversion from teaspoons to pints, then you can go ahead and do this in one step. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the math. Make sure all of the units cancel. Teaspoons, tablespoons, cups, pints, and the result's going to be bottles. Okay, let's go ahead and do the math. So that looks like 3.3 repeating, 3.3 repeating. It's times one, all the numbers in the top. So I'm going to divide by 3 and then divide by 16, then divide by 2. And I'll get my total number of bottles that I need, which is 0.0347. This is vanilla extract that we're doing. Okay, so these are bottles. 0.0347 bottles into the yield, which is 100%. You just purchase the vanilla extract, or 0.0347 bottles. Okay, so make sure that you do all of the conversions, okay, for these two recipes and for the remaining recipes. And then we're gonna move into the grocery list, okay? The grocery list is organized as a list of all of the ingredients for all of the recipes that we're working with. So every ingredient that you have on the salmon or the lobster and the orange dressing and the crêpe Suzette and the dessert crepes, which are needed for the crêpe Suzette, it's all included into this list, okay? And then we have a column for the lobster salad, for the orange dressing, for the crepes, and for the dessert crepes. And we have a last column that's a total AP quantity. Okay, so the way that we're gonna fill up this is we're gonna go back to our recipes, and all of my AP quantities, all of the quantities that you are calculating, you have to dump those into the grocery list. Okay, so starting with the lobster meat, cooked and sliced, that's 9 pounds. I'll go ahead and look up lobster meat, which is 9 pounds. Okay, I'm gonna draw a line here. I'll draw a line here. Okay, so I have 9 pounds for lobster. And then mangoes, I have 18 mangoes. So I look up mangoes, it's 18-ish. And then I'm gonna go back to avocados, which is 24-ish. So avocados, 24-ish. And then every ingredient that you calculate, you have to fill up the grocery list, okay? So for the orange dressing, I have vanilla extract, which is 0.0347. Vanilla extract, 0.0347 bottles. Okay, then you fill up the whole grocery list with every ingredient. Not every slot is going to be filled here, okay, but there's some ingredients that are going to be shared between the recipes. So for example, I believe mangoes, I think you use in another recipe, or salt. For example, here you can see that you actually share salt in both recipes. Okay, so those two AP quantities that you're gonna have there, you have to plug in into those two columns. Oh, excuse me, these two columns, my bad. Which is the lobster salad and the orange dressing. So you fill up everything in the grocery list, and then at the end, what you're gonna do is you're gonna add all of these numbers that you have here and write it down in the last column. So every recipe that uses salt, you're gonna take these numbers and add them up, and they're going to go into my very last column. I apologize here, I did an equal sign where I shouldn't have. Okay, so add everything up, and then the equal sign goes here because the result goes in the last column. Okay, so if there's a recipe, or if all of the recipes use salt, then you're gonna have all of those numbers in the row. Go ahead and add them up because that's the total number of salt, or the total amount of salt that you're gonna need for all of your catering for the two recipes and the two sub recipes. Okay, this is a quick guideline into how to fill up the grocery list. Okay, make sure to let me know if you have any questions.